My friends, have you ever noticed how the loudest person in the room rarely knows what's really going on? How the ones who speak less observe more and seem to move through life with an almost mysterious calm, somehow always end up right where they need to be. We live in an age of noise, buzzing phones, endless opinions, constant comparison. Everyone's shouting to be seen, to be heard, to matter. But here's the truth: true power doesn't scream, it whispers. And when you learn the art of silence, the world starts to reveal its secrets to you. Today, I want to talk to you about a force hidden in plain sight: silence. It's not about muting your voice, it's about mastering your inner energy. When you stay silent, everything begins to align: your emotions, your purpose, and your path. Let's uncover how and why. When you stop talking, something incredible happens. Your senses wake up. Your mind sharpens, and the world around you starts revealing things you never noticed before. Silence is not emptiness. It's full of sound, energy, and information that most people are too distracted to catch. Imagine walking through a forest at dawn. The world isn't loud, it's alive. You can hear the whisper of the wind through the trees, the faint flutter of wings, the soft rhythm of your own heartbeat syncing with the earth's quiet pulse. That's what silence does inside you. It tunes you into a different frequency, one that's calm, clear, and astonishingly aware. But most people miss this magic because they're too busy talking, reacting, and trying to fill every gap with noise. The truth is, most people listen just long enough to reply, not to understand. They're waiting for their turn to speak instead of truly hearing what's being said. Yet, when you choose silence, when you stop rushing to add your opinion, you start seeing the invisible layers behind every word, every expression, every moment. You notice the tremor in someone's voice that reveals fear, the hesitation that signals doubt, the spark in their eyes when they speak of something real. Silence gives you X-ray vision for life. It lets you look past the surface into the truth of things. You stop being fooled by loud words and start recognizing quiet sincerity. You start to understand people, not because they tell you everything, but because silence gives you the patience to see everything. The great thinkers of history, Einstein, Tesla, Da Vinci, weren't just geniuses of invention. They were masters of stillness. Their brilliance wasn't born in noise, but in moments of deep, unbroken silence. Einstein used to say that he thought best when walking alone. Tesla would sit in silence for hours, visualizing his inventions so vividly that he could build them perfectly without blueprints. Da Vinci observed more than he spoke. He watched how light bent on glass, how birds curved through the air, how shadows danced across skin. Their silence wasn't weakness, it was their secret weapon. It was in those quiet spaces that ideas were born and truths were discovered. And it's not just in science or art that this applies. In everyday life, silence is your greatest tool for awareness. In conversations, it allows you to read the room, to sense emotions beyond words. In conflict, it keeps you grounded while others lose control. In love, it lets you feel the unspoken, the way someone looks at you when you're not looking, or the quiet presence that says more than any "I love you" ever could. We live in a world addicted to noise. Every moment, something's demanding attention. Notifications, chatter, endless streams of opinions. Everyone wants to be heard, but few want to understand. Silence, however, flips that script. It's the act of stepping away from the crowd and saying, "I don't need to shout to know my worth." It's about choosing awareness over reaction, focus over chaos, depth over distraction. You might think silence makes you invisible, but the opposite happens. It makes you unforgettable, because when you're silent, people notice. They feel the weight of your presence. They sense your calm while they're trapped in their storm, and that calm draws them in. It gives you power without ever needing to raise your voice. There's a story about a man who spent years trying to find peace. He went from city to city, book to book, teacher to teacher, searching for the secret of inner balance. Finally, an old monk told him, "Sit quietly by the river and listen." The man sat for hours, at first frustrated by the stillness, but eventually he began to hear more than just water. He heard the rhythm of the world, the voice of his own heart, the wisdom hidden in silence. When he returned, the monk smiled and said, "Now you've learned the hardest lesson, how to listen without words." That's the gift silence gives us. It reconnects us to ourselves. It reminds us that intuition, that quiet inner voice that's always guiding us, has been there all along. The only reason we miss it is because we drown it out with noise. But once you stop filling every moment with talk, once you learn to be still, you begin to hear that voice again. It doesn't shout, it never has to. It speaks softly, but with absolute clarity. It tells you when to act, when to wait, when to walk away, and when to hold on. So when you stay silent, you're not doing nothing. You're doing something profound. You're creating space for awareness to grow, for wisdom to emerge, for truth to unfold. You're learning to trust that the answers you've been chasing in the outside world have been waiting patiently inside you all along. And the moment you realize that, when you finally listen instead of react, observe instead of interrupt, you begin to see life as it really is. The fog clears, the noise fades, and what's left is awareness, sharp, calm, powerful. That's the moment everything changes. That's the moment silence becomes your superpower. There's an old saying that's more than just words. It's a philosophy of power. A tiger doesn't announce it's going to pounce. It just does. That's the essence of real strength. True power doesn't need to make noise. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't demand attention. It moves in silence and strikes with precision. In that silence, there's control, patience, and purpose. Three things that separate the ordinary from the unstoppable. When you stay silent, you conserve energy. You don't waste your fire trying to convince others who you are or what you're capable of. You don't explain your every choice or defend every move. You simply let your results speak the language that words can't. Most people drain themselves fighting battles of opinion, trying to be understood by those who aren't even listening. But silence, that's where your strength grows, because silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. It's the choice to stay still, gather your energy, and focus it like a blade. Think of life as a storm. There are times when the winds howl, chaos swirls, and everything feels uncertain. Most people panic, shouting over the noise, trying to control what they can't. But then there are those few, those calm souls in the center of the storm, who say nothing. They stand firm, they breathe, they wait, and when the time is right, they act decisively, powerfully, and effectively. That's what silence gives you, the strength to respond when it matters, not react when it doesn't. When life tests you, through betrayal, disappointment, or failure, it's easy to want to speak out, to shout your pain, to prove your innocence, or justify your struggle. But the real power lies in restraint. Staying silent doesn't mean you're ignoring your hurt. It means you're mastering it. Because silence is where growth happens. It's where wounds turn into wisdom. When you stop talking about what broke you, you start building what will remake you. Imagine a boxer before a championship fight. The arena is deafening, the crowd roars, cameras flash. The opponent paces with bravado, but the boxer's eyes are still, his breathing steady, his mind locked in. The noise around him fades into nothing because his focus is everything. That's not weakness, that's dominance. He doesn't need to talk his way into power. He already owns it. Silence becomes his shield, his focus, his calm before the storm. And when the bell rings, that calm explodes into controlled force. That's how life works too. The louder the world gets, the more powerful silence becomes. When you're quiet, people underestimate you. And that's a gift. Because while they're busy talking, you're busy building. While they're showing off, you're growing. When your moment comes, you won't need to make an announcement. You'll just act, and the world will take notice. History is full of silent warriors. Think of the inventors who toiled in small workshops for years before the world recognized their genius. Think of athletes who trained in the dark while no one watched, only to rise one day and dominate the arena. Think of ordinary people who endured storms quietly, built their dreams piece by piece, and let their achievements tell the story words never could. Silence is the forge where strength is made. Every time you hold back an unnecessary argument, you strengthen your self-control. Every time you choose not to explain yourself to someone who won't understand, you preserve your dignity. Every time you stop reacting and start observing, you sharpen your awareness. That's how emotional resilience is built, not in noise, but in quiet discipline. We live in a world that tells us to always speak, always share, always defend. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say nothing. When others insult you, stay silent. When they doubt you, stay silent. When they misunderstand you, stay silent. Because silence doesn't mean you've given up. It means you've leveled up. It means you've chosen peace over ego. It means you're saving your energy for something greater, action. There's immense strength in the person who doesn't need to respond to every challenge, who can sit in stillness while the world demands reaction. That's a rare kind of power, one that doesn't fade with time or depend on validation. It's the strength of someone who knows exactly who they are and what they're capable of. So, when you feel the urge to shout, to argue, to prove your worth, pause. Let silence speak for you. Let your calm presence unsettle those who expect chaos. Let your patience confuse those who thrive on noise. And when your time comes to act, move like the tiger, silent, focused, unstoppable. Because strength doesn't come from noise. It comes from knowing when to be quiet, when to observe, and when to strike. In that quiet confidence lies your greatest power, the kind that can't be shaken, broken, or ignored. Noise is a mask, a curtain that hides what's really happening beneath the surface. It distracts, distorts, and deceives. The louder things get, the harder it becomes to see the truth. But when you strip away the noise, when you allow silence to settle in, something incredible happens. The truth begins to reveal itself. It's not always comfortable, but it's always real. Silence has a way of showing you what words often try to hide. When you step back and choose not to react, people start showing their true colors without even realizing it. You begin to see who values you and who only values what you can give. You see who listens to understand and who listens just to reply. You see who's sincere and who's performing. Silence becomes your lens of clarity, revealing motives, loyalties, and intentions that noise would have kept buried. We live in a world where everyone's trying to be heard, but few are trying to understand. That's why silence is so powerful. It separates the authentic from the artificial. When you grow quiet, you stop feeding the noise. You stop fueling false connections. And in that stillness, people reveal themselves. The ones who genuinely care will notice you're quiet. They'll reach out. They'll stay present. They'll feel your absence. The ones who were there for convenience will simply fade. It hurts at first, but it's a beautiful kind of pain. The kind that makes room for truth. In relationships, silence is the ultimate test. Words can be rehearsed, emotions can be faked, but silence can't be manipulated. When you stop talking, stop explaining, stop chasing, you learn who truly values your presence and who was only entertained by your attention. You start to see that real love doesn't demand constant noise. It's found in understanding, in presence, in shared quiet moments where connection exists without effort. The ones meant for you won't fear your silence, they'll feel it. Think about those moments when you decide to walk away from arguments, gossip, or drama. At first, it's uncomfortable. It feels unnatural, like you're abandoning the chance to defend yourself or set the record straight. But then something starts to shift. The peace that comes afterward is undeniable. It's the feeling of truth settling in. You realize that silence doesn't lose battles, it ends them. Because truth doesn't need to fight, it just needs space to exist. And silence is the space where truth breathes. In a world obsessed with attention, silence is rebellion. It's the refusal to play the game of noise. Everyone wants to be the loudest voice in the room, to prove their point, to win every debate. But the strongest people understand that winning isn't about being heard. It's about knowing what's worth saying and what's better left unspoken. The moment you stop chasing explanations, stop trying to justify yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you, you gain something far greater, clarity. Life starts to make sense again. There's a story about a sculptor who was asked how he created such lifelike statues. He said, "I don't create them. I just remove what doesn't belong." That's what silence does. It removes what doesn't belong. It chips away the noise, the false narratives, the unnecessary distractions until only truth remains. You stop hearing what others want you to believe and start hearing what your soul already knows. Silence isn't passive, it's revealing. When you stop responding to chaos, you expose it. When you stop defending your character, people see who's been lying. When you stop trying to control the outcome, life naturally rearranges itself in your favor. Because silence is truth's ally, it allows what's false to collapse on its own. In friendships, silence exposes intentions. In work, it uncovers character. In life, it separates what's temporary from what's timeless. When you stop engaging with every noise, you start to notice patterns. The people who gossip about others will gossip about you. The ones who complain will keep complaining. But the quiet ones, the steady ones, the ones who listen before they speak, they're the ones holding real strength. The kind that doesn't need validation. It takes courage to stay silent in a world that demands a reaction. It takes strength to hold your peace when everything inside you wants to respond. But that's the mark of growth. Learning that truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. It stands quietly, waiting for the noise to tire itself out. So when the world around you gets loud, when people test your patience or challenge your peace, remember this: silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom in motion. It's truth revealing itself one quiet moment at a time. The less you speak, the more you see. And once you see clearly, you can never unsee the truth that silence was trying to show you all along. Here's the beautiful paradox of life: the quieter you become, the louder your presence grows. When you learn to move with calm confidence instead of desperate noise, the world can't help but take notice. In a time where everyone is shouting for attention, the one who walks in silence becomes a mystery. An energy that can't be ignored. People begin to wonder, who are they? Why do they seem so sure without saying a word? That quiet confidence draws curiosity, respect, and opportunity like a magnet. Because silence, my friends, has gravity. It pulls the right things toward you without you needing to chase them. We live in a world obsessed with volume. Everyone's trying to prove something, show something, sell something. Social media rewards noise. Conversations have become competitions. But true strength, true confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It just exists. It's like the ocean, vast, deep, and commanding even when still. Silence is that same kind of power. It doesn't demand attention, but it receives it naturally. When you stay silent, you project self-control. You show that your emotions don't control you. You control them. That kind of poise makes people trust you in chaos, respect you in conflict, and follow you when they're uncertain. Think of the person everyone turns to when things fall apart. It's rarely the one shouting orders. It's the one who stays calm, steady, focused. Their silence speaks louder than any speech ever could, because silence communicates something powerful. I am in control. I watch the greatest leaders, the ones who command rooms without raising their voices. It's not their volume that moves people. It's their presence. They don't need to outtalk anyone because their energy does the talking for them. That presence doesn't come from ego or dominance. It comes from inner peace. When you're at peace with yourself, you don't need to fight for space. You have become the space. Silence makes you magnetic because it shows discipline, and discipline is rare. When you can listen more than you speak, people begin to feel safe around you. They open up, they trust you, they bring you opportunities, not because you asked, but because you earned it through presence. Opportunities love silence because silence is focus, and focus gets results. Consider this: when you speak constantly, you leak energy. Every unnecessary word drains power, but when you move in silence, that energy builds inside you. It strengthens your resolve. It gives your actions weight. That's why when silent people finally speak or act, the world pays attention. Their words have force because they don't waste them. Think about the artist who quietly creates, the athlete who trains when no one's watching, the entrepreneur who works in the shadows until one day the world sees the results and calls it an overnight success. What they don't see are the years of silent effort, the discipline, the patience, the belief. Opportunity didn't randomly appear. It was attracted to their stillness, to their quiet commitment. When you move with silent purpose, life starts moving with you. The right people begin to appear, the ones who see your worth without needing to be convinced. The right ideas flow to you because your mind isn't cluttered with noise. The right chances align because silence makes you ready to receive. Noise chases, silence attracts. There's something deeply human about this. We're wired to notice stillness amidst chaos. A single calm presence in a frantic crowd draws the eye, commands respect, because silence represents mastery, the mastery of self. It shows you're not desperate for approval or afraid of being overlooked. You've already found your center, and that's what the world responds to. Imagine walking into a room where everyone's competing for attention. Voices overlap, egos collide, and then you say nothing. You stand, listen, and observe. You don't need to be the loudest because your energy speaks for you. Slowly, people start to look your way. They feel your steadiness. They sense your confidence. That's the silent magnetism of someone who knows they don't need to shout to be seen. Silence also creates mystery, and mystery is powerful. People are drawn to what they don't fully understand. When you speak less, you give others room to wonder, to imagine, to respect the depth they can't quite define. The less you reveal, the more others want to know. And in that space of quiet curiosity, opportunities begin to form. Even the universe seems to respond differently when you move in silence. It's as if life itself listens. You stop forcing and things begin to flow. You stop chasing and what's meant for you starts finding you. Your energy shifts from trying to get to simply becoming, and that's when everything changes. So in this noisy world, dare to be quiet. Dare to let your presence speak louder than your words. Dare to walk with purpose, not pressure. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's power. And the quieter you move, the more the world will move for you. Silence is not emptiness, it's a conversation with the universe. It's the language of alignment, the sacred space where you stop shouting your plans and start hearing the rhythm of life itself. When you slow down, when you stop trying to fill every moment with noise, you begin to sense that there's something greater guiding you. Call it intuition, destiny, divine timing, whatever you name it. It's the same quiet force that speaks when everything else goes still. When you're always talking, always explaining, always overthinking, you're broadcasting your fears into the world. You're sending out signals of worry, impatience, and control. But when you choose silence, something shifts. You stop pushing against the current and start floating with it. Silence is the act of surrender, not in weakness, but in trust. It's saying, I don't need to control everything. I trust that what's meant for me is already finding its way. Think about those moments when life seemed to surprise you out of nowhere. You stopped trying so hard, and suddenly things started falling into place. The job you'd been chasing suddenly found you. The right person appeared at the exact time you needed them. A solution to a problem popped into your mind when you least expected it. That wasn't luck, and it wasn't coincidence. That was alignment. That was the universe responding to your stillness. Because when you're silent, you're no longer forcing things, you're as allowing them. We spend so much of our lives trying to make things happen. We push, we plan, we pressure. But the truth is, the universe doesn't speak through chaos, it speaks through calm. Silence tunes your heart like an instrument to the frequency of flow. It's in that quiet that intuition whispers the answers your mind's been shouting for. And those whispers, they never lead you wrong. When you learn to sit in silence, to breathe and just be, you begin to trust that rhythm. You stop asking, when will it happen? And instead start believing it's already on its way. That simple shift changes everything. Because life isn't a race against time, it's a dance with timing. And when you move in harmony with the music of the universe, everything that's meant for you begins to arrive without struggle. There's a certain beauty in realizing that silence is not empty space, it's full of signals. The wind against your skin, the steady beat of your heart, the soft voice inside that says, this is right, or this isn't for you. That's the universe communicating. But you can't hear it when you're too busy talking over it. You can't feel it when your mind is crowded with noise. Silence clears the static so that life's messages can come through. Have you ever walked outside on a quiet night when the world feels still and the sky stretches endlessly above you? In that moment, you feel small but not insignificant. You feel connected to the stars, to the air, to everything around you. That's not imagination, that's truth. Silence reminds you that you're not separate from the universe, you're part of it. You're made of the same energy, the same stardust, the same creative force. And when you go quiet, you remember that connection. The universe has a strange way of rewarding those who wait in silence. It's like it tests your patience, not to punish you, but to prepare you. It teaches you to trust, to let go, to believe that not every blessing arrives with noise or drama. Sometimes the most miraculous things happen quietly. A door opens without you knocking. A storm ends without you asking. A new path lights up in front of you just when you were ready to give up. When you move through life with silence in your heart, you stop chasing and start attracting. You no longer run after what's already yours. You stand still and let it come to you. Because silence isn't passive, it's powerful. It creates space for the universe to do its work. It's in that stillness that synchronicity begins to unfold, those perfectly timed moments that feel too aligned to be accidents. The right people, the right opportunities, the right moments, they start showing up, drawn by the quiet confidence of someone who's aligned with something bigger than themselves. Silence is how you step into that flow. It's how you let go of fear and surrender to trust. It's how you remind yourself that life isn't against you. It's for you. Always moving in your favor, even when you can't see it yet. And when you finally stop trying to shout your way through the noise, when you stand in quiet faith and simply listen, you'll hear it, the soft, unmistakable rhythm of the universe, beating in time with your own heart. And in that rhythm, everything you've ever needed begins to find its way home to you. So, my friends, remember this: silence isn't the absence of sound, it's the presence of power. It's not retreat, it's readiness. Stay silent when others expect noise. Listen when others argue. Move when the moment feels right. Because when you stop chasing, stop forcing, and start feeling, everything begins to come naturally. Silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. And when you master it, the world will whisper its secrets right back to you.